Today's education news, more than 4 in 5 head teachers suffer abuse from parents. A survey of over 1,600 members of the National Association of Head Teachers reveals appalling examples of heads, senior leaders being verbally and physically abused. 9 in 10 said abuse from parents has increased in the past 3 years, 37% saying it's greatly increased. Verbal abuse was the most common form of abuse, 85% saying they'd experienced it in the past year, while 1 in 10 has suffered physical violence. 68% reported threatening behaviour, 22% reported discriminatory language, including the use of racist, sexist or homophobic terms. The survey also exposed the trolling of school leaders on social media, in parents' groups on WhatsApp, Facebook, as well as appalling instances of hate campaigns, harassment and intimidation. Almost half of respondents said they'd faced online abuse. More than 4 in 10 said that in response to abusive behaviour, they've banned parents from the school site. They've had a third have said they reported parents to police or local authority. Some 8% said they'd arranged meetings with parents, while 72% had issued a warning letter or email. And the impact this is having, leaders saying that the abuse has made their lives a misery to the extent they've considered quitting the profession. Some were left suffering anxiety, depression or panic attacks. More than a third said they typically experience abuse from parents every month, with 16% saying it's happening on a weekly basis. And we wonder why we're struggling to recruit head teachers. Now, it's clear from here that when it comes to abuse from parents, leadership teams, head teachers are taking the brunt of it, but it can also happen to teachers, support staff, everyone involved in education. It definitely needs to stop. But will it? No. Why? Because there's no one holding parents accountable. I want to make it clear here that the majority of parents are absolutely brilliant. They understand that teachers are trying their best, going above and beyond in a very broken system, and are willing to work alongside the schools and see the value in education. These statistics from a minority of parents are completely unacceptable, and it needs to change. Why do I think there's been a massive increase in the past 3 years? Well, I think the previous government contributes to this. During their tenure, they did everything in their power to just erode away any respect, professionalism towards teachers, constantly blaming them for everything. Remember during the pandemic where the Secretary of State was encouraging parents to complain about schools when the government put no support in for schools to help with home learning? All of that undermining and demeaning that's happened over those years has then had a knock-on to some parents. Social media is another massive contributor. People don't realise social media is there to do one job, keep you on social media. And the one emotion that keeps you on the longest, anger and outrage. And so it pushes that sort of content to you. So people can just be really easily influenced and manipulated to just see schools as the enemy. I know there are some parents who are getting incredibly frustrated at the fact that schools are not necessarily providing the best provision or support for their children with a particular need, or just getting the diagnosis and how long it takes. And I completely understand those frustrations, which should never lead to abuse. But you've got to understand, so little of that is because of the school. It's the system that's broken. And teachers, the humans within education, are going above and beyond, trying their best, knowing full well that they are failing the children because the money's not there, the support's not there, the time it takes to get that support in place. I mean, do you think as teachers, we don't want the support for some of our children? Of course we do. But unfortunately, the system is so broken. And ultimately, this is the thing, I think, is that teachers and schools leaders are just there to be blamed. We sort of live in this blame culture now, where we're sort of conditioned to always think that we're never at fault. It's always someone else's fault. And I think teachers and school leaders are just an easy target for you to take any frustration you have in life out on, because you know you can get away with it, and you know you can be abusive and there aren't any consequences to it. I just want to say how much respect and admiration I have for school leaders and head teachers, especially in the current climate. I think it's such a thankless task at times, and I think the job's harder than it's ever been. It can be such an isolated job at the minute, and it is harder than it's ever been because of things like this. I get so many messages from teachers who are really struggling because of things like parents' WhatsApp groups and how toxic these can turn. And listen, as a parent, I've been in a parents' WhatsApp group. I know what it can be like. Even I've had to check myself sometimes because I've been lured in to think, shock it. How could a teacher, how can a school do that? But then I've had to take a moment to go, hang on, I'm only getting one side of the story here. Now, as a parent, my go-to reaction whenever one of my children says, oh, I got in trouble in school today, teacher told me off, whatever it might be, I always say, what did you do? And they'll go, nothing. And I go, you must have done something, because a teacher's not going to tell you off for nothing. I know what children are like. They don't ever want to see themselves as being in the wrong. They can be selective with the truth. They can sometimes say things, not because necessarily it is the truth, because they think that's what you want to hear. And if they know you are always being negative about the school, children will play into that. They'll act up to it. Again, I know it's such a small minority of parents, but there are some parents who will genuinely believe a 6-year-old child over a fully trained professional teacher. And that, again, is just making our job so much harder. Even if my children are adamant that the teacher is in the wrong, I will always give them the benefit of the doubt. I'll let it slide. Listen, if it's a one-off, maybe that teacher has got it wrong. They all make mistakes. As long as it's not persistent, as long as it doesn't happen again, there we go. We'll get on with it. But this, it needs addressing. It needs to change. It's just not acceptable, and it can't continue. Even the DFE say here that nobody should face violence or abuse in the workplace, including our incredible school staff who are vital to improving life chances for all children. I completely agree with that. But what are the government doing to hold these abusive parents to account? Because if they're not being held accountable, then they're going to continue to do it because they know they can get away with it. And it's an easy win to just have a dig at people who are deemed in a position of power, like teachers, but they're the only people in a position of power that parents can get away with abusing, and you will get some who will take advantage of that if they know there are no consequences for being abusive.